Nikita, welcome to the product podcast. Just imagine there is nobody here.
Well,
Okay?
I was here earlier and there was nobody here.
There are no,
It feels different now.
yeah, no, there are no 2,000 product leaders in the room. Before we came in, you mentioned that you have a lot of spicy takes to share.
I have some hot takes.
So let's start from the top.
Okay.
What's really going on?
What's really going on? I think that there's a lot of, I don't think hysteria might be a stretch. There's a lot of panic all around. A lot of it is justified because I think for many of us, like we are experiencing, I'm not going to call it the next wave of the Industrial Revolution, but a lot of things happen when we're faced with new technology at the scale that we are now. And I think one of the things that remains is it kind of often follows the same cycle. It's a new technology which changes what we build, it changes how we build it, and it also changes what we measure and how we monetize. And I feel like we're in that moment now, and especially as product people, as product leaders, we have to figure out how to adjust and adapt to all of those changes in real time, while also, for many of us, growing and managing very successful businesses. So there is a lot of overwhelm, but I also think that we already have a lot of the tools and leadership and management that we need to kind of manage this transformation in a slightly calmer way.
I think your company is at an interesting spot. Like you are considered a large enterprise, but it's also not as large as maybe BT, right?
Right.
So for a company of that size, maybe start by defining what's the current state.
So Perk, for those that don't know, we are a travel and spend management platform. We've been around for about 10 years, started in travel. Last year, we launched our spend side of the businesses. That's cards, expenses, invoices, reconciliation, and also we've launched an events platform. We're about 2,000 people. We have about 450 builders. Builders is product design, engineering, data. And so we're large, but probably not as large as some of the enterprise companies here today. But the problems that we're facing are very similar, right? We are facing having a technology that we built, in some cases, 7 or 10 years ago. But I think the difference is, what do you do when faced with new information, right? So the technology and the decisions that we made 10 years ago don't necessarily hold now. And there's a long history of companies that don't make the transition quickly enough to adapt to the new technologies. And so a lot of what we're doing is making sure that we do that. One of the things some of the folks I've talked to here is the question of how do you do that when you're also maintaining like an existing and robust business. Some of the things that we think about and some of the changes we've made, I think, over the past 7 to 10 months is how we think about the size and scope of our teams. So one of the things we've gone to is this idea of having smaller, highly focused teams that own specific problem areas. One of the things we were chatting about earlier is this idea that, for many of us, I grew up in product in the early 2010s, so 15, 16 years ago. And when someone mentioned rebuild, everyone would panic because you never talked about rebuilding something because it was always kind of a red herring of something else. But we're not in that moment anymore. Like when we think about what we can do in terms of like AI code generation tools, it is a moment where we can actually start doing those things in parallel. So what does it mean to take a component of our business and actually in parallel start rebuilding it based on the tools that are at our disposal now? And I feel like product leaders that move with strong conviction in that direction are getting ahead.
It's funny when you use the term rebuilding, because pretty much everything that starts with the word RE is like complicated, right?
Sure.
Like reorg, reposition, replatform, rebuild.
Yeah.
So it is necessary. And I think sometimes it's easier to say that from the top as leading that change. But for other people who are impacted by a decision that maybe they didn't make, like how do you combine that, like the expectation of we actually need to make a change with this doesn't mean you're going to be fired?
Yes. I think it's multifold. The way that we're thinking about it at Perk right now I'm going to continue to call us our builders organization, again, product design, engineering, data, is that we as leaders have a responsibility to our teams to provide the training, the tools, the space to actually learn these tools to make a difference. For product managers, we have put in a couple of categories. So there's the what do I need as a PM to um, make myself more efficient? So what are the tools that can help me be better at my job? So everything we've talked about in terms of user research. You don't have to read all of it. You can put it all in AI. It can give you the summaries. You still have to do some work, though, to actually get to know the customers. That remains. So AI can help you summarize, but it doesn't necessarily or shouldn't necessarily be the first thing that draws the insights that you might need to actually solve a user problem. So it can accelerate what you do as a PM, and there's so many tools that help with that, with writing, with PRDs, with obviously prototyping, and we should do that. But the core job of a product manager to lead with a strong point of view, to lead with conviction, to decide which of the many problems we're going to solve and why it's important to solve it now, I think that work for right now still remains even with the tools. So we want to enable the tools, but to still draw on the insights that make product management a really significant part of our jobs. And then there's the actual, what are we doing in product to accelerate what users are experiencing. And that comes together. One of the things we were talking about earlier is, for instance, ERP integrations, which I think a lot of you deal in just integrations in general. Before, you had to read all the documentation, you had to build the APIs, you had to build a connector, it had to be backward compatible, and then an update was made, and then you had to check it. There's a way in which that work in many of our businesses still exists, but we have technology that can do that, and can do that almost immediately at a much lower cost. So we kind of have to move in that direction, but that doesn't change the fact that I believe, and I think at Perk we believe, that we still need individuals and human beings, right, that are actively kind of doing the work to actually enable the technology in the directions we need to grow our businesses.
One of the
It's a lot of words, sorry.
it's a lot. I mean, one of the things that I found unique in what you are doing is for the business of your scale, like 2,000 people, you are using the term builders, and not just using the term.
We're
I
builders,
really,
yeah.
you're talking about speed. Those concepts sometimes don't go hand in hand with pretty large company. So
Right.
what does builder really mean for you?
I like the conviction with which you asked that question. Builders, we're in the business of creating, right? Not pontificating, not making wild guesses. We actually have to create and produce something in the world that didn't exist there before. When I think about being a builder, it's about having the imagination, frankly, to identify a problem, a potential solution, and actually get it into the hands of users, right? And people for whom the problem is solved. What I think is amazing right now in the age of being a builder is there are tools that we didn't have before. For product managers, historically, it's been, well, I'm a PM, I have the ideas, I write the specs, I collaborate with design, also builders, I collaborate with engineers, and then it gets built. But now we're in a moment where I think product management, and also I'd say go-to-market as well, has this really amazing moment in time to actually create value in ways that we hadn't before. And if we don't get on board and make that happen, to actually go from ideation to actually creation to getting into the hands of users quickly, because we are, I think, building into a future where that will become much more immediate and much lower cost again, then we do run the risk of falling behind. So a builder is not to get too philosophical, is the actual, the act of creating something with tools, with help, with people, that didn't really exist before. And I think it is the responsibility for all builders, product design, engineering, data, marketing also, right? And our team's marketing is a part of that. We can now actually do that in much smaller teams and sometimes individually than we were able to do before.
Exactly. So it sounds like you're already applying those AI native concepts to have smaller team than before with actual builders, which is this hybrid role that ships, designs, that's whatever it takes to get something done.
Yes.
So tell me more about that, because there must be many of them. So the coordination required to make sure that, they are actually shipping the right thing can also be higher.
We are. We're doing a lot of it, but I also want to be clear that we're all of us in this moment where we're all figuring it out together, right? So I joined Perk 7 months ago. A lot of the foundation for this was already laid in a lot of ways. And so the role now has been a lot about enabling our teams and myself so that all builders have access to the tools that they need. And also the license, right, to, to actually do it and actually potentially slow down a little bit. And I know right now everything is about speed, but this concept of slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Like sometimes you do need to slow down a little bit to get people on board, to get individuals on board, to get these groups, so that we can accelerate later. And I think a lot of what we do right now at Perk is enabling that. So one of the newest parts of our product that we launched was in January. That's the events platform. And we basically had a small, tightly focused team in incubation using new technologies, connected to our core goal of enabling businesses. But they ran with it and they built it, incubated it for a couple of months, and then we launched it as part of our core platform in January. Now, had we not changed how we operated, that probably would have taken years, right, traditionally. And it didn't. And so now we launched in
This is a
January.
separate team that was
A
focused on
separate
that.
team that operated outside, in a way, of the core, but was still building on the platform.
Let's talk about the concept of speed. And sometimes it sounds like speed and quality not cannot go together. And you have this concept of like radical urgency, right? Tell me
Yeah.
more about it.
I mean, this concept of speed and quality is a forever topic. I think we've all been talking about that forever. um, and there are trade-offs, right? For me, it's speed to learning that's most important, right? So speed to learning is most important, and part of that is getting it to market in the hands of real users as quickly as possible to get that feedback. That also, I think, in our craft and our discipline hasn't changed, but we now have tools that can make us do it even faster than we did before. So I think that tooling is important. The other is, I think, about the role of product, and that is about driving urgency, like not just product leadership, but all PMs on a team. It is about driving urgency on the thing that we need to deliver and when. And there are trade-offs always, but we also know that if you're building a product that isn't good, isn't great, it won't succeed long-term. And I think when we talk about that, for instance, in November, when we launched our new spend product, it was initially going to launch in January. And we said, in the spirit of acceleration, figure out what we can do within this time, can we pull that forward? And we did. We pulled it forward to November. And it was a tough sprint, right? But we got there. We wanted to get it there before the holidays, so it was in hand of customers for when prime traveling starts in the new year, and expenses. And we did. But I think the team at the time didn't necessarily believe we could do it. But putting that challenge in front of the team with the tight scope as we do, I think made a really big difference. And we launched it, but also it was only the beginning. It's not as though we launched and then ran away. What we launched was only the beginning of what we are creating as this multi-product end-to-end platform that can be with you throughout your entire journey.
This is one of the very few times I hear someone accelerating a deadline, right? So curious to know, what are the trade-offs that you had to make?
Great question. The trade-offs were around, as always, there was some, scope, right? We did not go out entirely fully featured as we would have. Some of it was also in the time and expertise of some of the people. So some of the things that we did, there were certain people on our teams that they were just kind of quarantined is the wrong word, but they were kind of just focused only on that. And other members of the team that had those skills could pick up in other areas. So I think that was one of it. That was part of it. The other was that it was really a full team effort. The entire company understood that milestone and pitched in whenever was necessary. So even the day of launch, which has been one of my favorite days so far in this journey, we didn't have to be in the office, but a bunch of us were in the office at 6 a.m. when we're making this huge platform change. It was historic for our company. And all of us were there, including leadership, all of our IC engineers, product designers, our product marketing team. And so it really felt like the entire company had such high conviction about why we need to get this done that we all showed up for each other in that moment. And I think that changed a lot of the sentiment organizationally of what we were doing and why it was important.
You joined around 6 months ago?
6, 7 months ago, yeah.
6, 7.
Oh.
And the company has been
My kids will love that.
and the company has been around for like 10 years.
We've been around, yes, for about 10 years, yeah.
Such a bad joke.
I know, it's fine. I'm gonna have to show it to them.
So you joined 6 months ago, and the company went from one product to multi-product.
Yeah.
That's pretty epic, right? So I'm curious to know what was the company like when you joined, and what are some of those structural changes that you led in order to allow for the business to go multi-product ahead of time?
Yeah. I will start by saying the team's amazing, right? There's only so much that I or any leader can influence during that time. So a lot of it happened and continues to exist before I was there. Like, it's a highly motivated, passionate, exciting team. You'll meet them outside. There's a lot of energy. Please join us. And one of the things that drew me to Perk when I was meeting with the entire team early last year was the conviction. So we had a big rebrand last March. And rebrand, again, is one of those things that people sometimes scoff at because, like, how many rebrands can you do? But our rebrand was not just a rebrand. Our rebrand was, again, building into the future with high conviction. We knew we were TravelPerk then, and we knew that we were going to be a multi-product platform end-to-end, right? And so the rebrand was about positioning us to be able to go from TravelPerk to Perk, which is travel, spend, expenses, cards, and events. And so what I loved about that is we were leading with conviction about the future we were building into. So that was in March. And then by the time we decided it was time to launch our spend management platform, the thinking behind that had been done, obviously, a long time before. But the idea that we needed to be a single platform that could do that, right, meant that we needed to align, again, all of the teams. It was through an acquisition. And that acquisition was fascinating to me, again, joining, because often when we look at these kinds of acquisitions and integrations, it's a thing off to the side. And I think we approached it differently, which is it's not a thing off to the side. This is going to be a core part of the platform, and the work to integrate it to be a single platform was going to happen right now and with urgency. So it meant pulling teams from Yokoi, the spend product that we acquired, and the team joined us. So we integrated Perk teams, TravelPerk teams, spend teams, all of those teams to create what we considered the most cohesive unit across builders, focused on very specific, tightly scoped areas of the product so we could ship on time.
So that's another great point. Like, you're talking about an integration, not just of technology, I guess, culture, right? Like,
yes.
You expanded product by organically launching a new one, but then you also expanded again by acquiring a new one, right? So how do you go about making sure that this is not just a re-platform or a rebrand, but it's also like a re-culture kind of connection, if you will?
Yeah, this can go many ways, but I think that we have a really strong culture in terms of what it means to be a builder, what it means to have strong teams, the level of commitment we have to our customers, to each other. And these are the things when we talk about what Perk is becoming. Like, we're a company that we're building to last 100 years, right? So this idea that myself, most of the teams, 100 years from now, we're probably not going to be there. But whatever we're building now needs to add so much value to our customers, but also to the people that are in the company at a given time, where we can, on product, I think of it as grow our careers, whether you're going to stay with us or go elsewhere. We hope you all stay. Grow their careers, work on technology that really matters and makes a difference. Also have the opportunity to create and own parts of the product that I think one of the things we do really well is we give a lot of scope even to really more junior folks, so that they can kind of build, obviously, and become invested, frankly, in what we're building. So a lot of what we did, our current head of the spend product was a former founder of the company that we acquired and is completely a part of the product team, the leadership team. We operate as one team across product design, engineering, data. And I think having that set up where we are equals in that way has gone a long way.
Well, Nikita, I think this is a masterclass on how to redo a lot of different things in a way. I'm also curious about you personally as a CPO who's trying to orchestrate this and do a bunch of other stuff. Like, what does being a builder mean to you? Basically, how do you prioritize your own time to make sure that you are giving attention to the right priorities?
We didn't plan that question. I'm teasing. Yeah, that's, as you can imagine, on my mind a lot. A lot of the way I spend this first phase has been around obviously deeply understanding the product, how we operate, but I think a lot about how to future-proof, in quotations, what we're doing, which might be impossible, but when I talk about what is the organizational structure that I think we need to succeed in the next year, 18 months, 5 years. So one was we changed a lot of the product team to just be more focused. So where we had a lot more managers before, we have fewer managers now. A lot of our leaders are doing IC and coaching so that they are closer to the problem, and also now, myself included, closer to the technologies so we can guide the teams and the products better. So I think that's a big change that we're seeing. I think this enablement piece of there is some resistance and some teams probably to AI, as most of us are, because it is brand new and is a very different way of working. So kind of enabling the opportunity to experiment and play, frankly, with these technologies so we can improve our skills and how we build, I think, is another one. And being close to our users. Like one of the things what I was talking about before this, what are the things that change with technology? To me, for product, the fact that we need to know our users deeply and understand their problems deeply and talk to them all the time and understand their issues, that hasn't changed. There are tools that help us do it, but ultimately we're in business because we're solving problems for real customers. We're eliminating, in our case, what we call shadow work. Like, what are the ways in which we can use technology, automation, AI, whatever the technology may be, to solve real problems, to help others work better and also to grow their businesses. And that hasn't changed. And that's one of the things, it's not a spicy take, but when I think about the many ways in which product and product management is changing, that core thing of like knowing your user deeply hasn't. We just hopefully should be able to know them even better with the new tools at hand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.